Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored to be joined by the Dean of Career Services and Advancement, Steve Hassinger. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I always enjoy being on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, and we're so glad to be joining you here. And one of the things that we are going to be talking about on this afternoon is we are going to be looking at the upcoming Business Partner of the Year breakfast. Is going to be taking place on August 31st in the Conference Center from 8:30 to 10:30. You can sign up for the Business Partner of the Year breakfast at givebutter.com/BPOY2022. So, Steve, what I wanted to do today is talk to you a little bit more about what people can expect at the Business Partner of the Year breakfast, what some of the maybe the keynote speaker, and why a student might want to attend this Business Partner of the Year breakfast, other than the fact that it's free.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's my favorite kind of breakfast, a free breakfast. But in addition to a nice big buffet breakfast that we're going to have with scrambled eggs and bacon and pancakes and fruit and all kinds of great stuff, this is a great opportunity to network with employers as well as with other students and faculty and staff. So we typically have 75 to 100 people that will be at this event. At the date of this podcast, we're 4 weeks out, and we have 56 people that have registered already. So it looks like we'll be 75 to 100 people again. While it's not a recruiting event per se, like a job fair where the employers are specifically there looking for employees, we've had students who have gotten both internships and jobs as a result.
I can tell you a couple of them that I know off the top of my head. I remember Sherry got her internship through the Business Partner of the Year breakfast and CPEC.
And it's a great opportunity to meet people in kind of a different type of atmosphere. So as opposed to walking around from table to table like you would at a job fair, here you're going to be actually seated, typically at a table with 9 other people, and it's an opportunity to speak with them over breakfast, a little less formally perhaps, but then we also have a town meeting portion of this, which I really enjoy, and I moderate that, and we toss out topics around a theme, questions, and there's an opportunity for everybody to jump in. And I remember a couple of years ago, we had a student who just impressed the whole room with the things that they were contributing to the discussion. And he had like 4 or 5 employers approach him afterward and say, we want to talk to you. We want to talk to you. Come in and interview with us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I really like about this particular situation is I always ask my classes to go. For many of these students, this is really their first experience, quote unquote, networking. Right. And to your point, it's not a job fair, and there shouldn't be that anxiety level. Not that I think that it's good to have anxiety going into a job fair, but I can understand why students put in that situation may feel anxiety. In this particular case, you're sitting down, you can certainly join, other friends, but really the main goal is just to have a more informal conversation with somebody who is frankly very influential in the local business community. And I think even you probably notice this too, sometimes when you're doing mock interviews with people, sometimes these types of communication are very difficult if you've never done something like that before.
Absolutely. And if you have somebody who's really not feeling comfortable just, standing up in the midst of a town meeting and having somebody give them a cordless microphone so they can talk. They can sit back. They can kind of take it all in. They can kind of see how the event is going and how other people are interacting. And, they can turn and they can talk to the person next to them during the breakfast event. So there's a lot of opportunities there to communicate in different ways. And if you have somebody who's totally not comfortable, they can sit back and take this in and then hopefully next time be a little more comfortable as well.
2 things that I want to talk about in terms of the Business Partner of the Year breakfast. First of all, the keynote speaker will be Mike Wilson, Central Penn alum and wonderful person in the community. So tell us a little bit more about maybe a little bit more about Mike, but also how you got him to come in to be the keynote.
Yeah, so as we were talking, we have a small committee that plans this event each year, in addition to just us in Career Services. At the first meeting, we talk about theme, which our theme for this year is Reimagining the Future. Opportunities are endless. And we can talk more about that later if you want. But then we also talk about, who should we have for a keynote speaker? And there was really a feeling this year that we'd love to tie into a Central Penn College alumnus. And Mike Wilson is very prominent, as you mentioned, out in the community. I love his job title. He is the Chief Experience Officer for Members First Federal Credit Union. And he's been active with the college in other ways as well. So he was the first person we reached out to, and he actually returned my call from representing Members First at a golf outing up in the Scranton area, I think it was, or Wilkes-Barre that day. And he says, "Hey, I'm out at the golf course, but I wanted to get back to you." He was excited about the opportunity, and we're very excited to have him. He's a dynamic speaker, and I think people are going to really enjoy his presentation.
And Mike, if I recall correctly, was in one of the very first Central Penn commercials I ever remember seeing. And he's been such an important and integral part of, he was a cover of the Pendulum magazine a couple of years back. I mean, he is somebody that really exemplifies what it means to be a Central Penn student. Came here and has just been unbelievably successful in his career. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mike. And actually, I'm very lucky. He'll actually be coming to campus a couple of days before that so we can record the Bridge podcast, which
Awesome.
I'm also produce with Dr. Linda Fidrizi-Williams. So if you are looking for a new podcast to check out, you can go back into our back catalog there. And but that should be out just probably right around the beginning of September. So right after the BPOY is when that will be released. So I'm looking forward to
Great.
I've met Mike many times,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to seeing him again because it's been quite some time. Second thing I wanted to talk about, one of the biggest things, and I hope that this isn't a spoiler, but one of the things that I'm really excited about every year, obviously, is the intern of the year. In fact, one of our communication interns, Tim Umstead, actually, in recent memory, won the intern of the year, and it just so happens that another one of our former Nightly News Media Club members, Olivia Gregory, is going to be taking home that honor this year. I don't think that is necessarily something that's being overly secretive, but we are so looking forward to seeing Olivia. So Olivia got to work with the Harrisburg Riverboat Society. So if any of you are familiar with the Pride of the Susquehanna or have ever ridden on the Pride of the Susquehanna, it is actually run by a nonprofit organization in Harrisburg. And so Olivia got to work with them, and not only, so she did a wonderful job, and it's always great because I do site visits for our interns, and it's always great when I go in and the people are just, gushing about the person and how wonderful they are. And of course, knowing Olivia as long as I have, I know how wonderful she is. One of the things that's most interesting to me about Olivia is she actually just had a baby during her senior year of college.
Multitasking.
And, yeah, I would say. So it was so she had a newborn at home when she was doing her internship, in addition to being in the Nightly News, in addition to finishing up her coursework. So not only do I give her just tremendous credit for finishing on such a positive note, but also doing all of that with a newborn. So, but it was wonderful, and I was so happy to hear when I found out that Olivia was going to be presented with this award, and I have the fine honor of actually getting to introduce her. So that's always something that I'm looking forward to. Just to have one of our Nightly News members be recognized that way is super important.
Yeah, I love that aspect. This is the 18th year for the Business Partner of the Year breakfast, and we just added the Intern of the Year awards, I think about 4 years ago. Kristen Fike, our internship coordinator, was instrumental in doing that, and she does a great job of coordinating that. So that's been a tremendous addition. I know Olivia will be at the event, and actually the Riverboat, I mean, they've been so impressed. They actually reached out and said, well, maybe we should be a sponsor since she did such a great job for us. So I was actually just emailing back and forth with them this morning on some details about having them be a program supporter as well. So they will have representatives here to support her as well.
And as you listen to this, please consider going and riding the Pride of the Susquehanna this summer. They do they do daily boat tours, but they also do a lot of fun things. There's murder mystery, there's dinner nights and things like that. So they do a really, really great job. I do know the last time I talked to the Riverboat Society, they were a little concerned because of the height of the river. The river is actually really low due to, not a whole lot of rain this summer. But it's just so wonderful to have somebody from our department that's just being recognized for just the wonderful jobs that they're doing.
Yeah. Something else that we're going to do during the breakfast portion from 8:30 to 9 o'clock is Kristen Fike had put together a really nice scrolling PowerPoint highlighting our students that are out on internship this term and some of the internship sites that were prior Business Partner of the Year winners. So it was National Intern Day last week, and we had that scrolling on what we call our screenscapes here, our TVs around campus. We're going to take that presentation, we're going to have it scrolling on the screens for everybody to be able to see during the breakfast portion of the event.
That's fantastic. So one more time, keep your calendar free for Wednesday, August 31st from 8:30 to 10:30 in the Conference Center for the Business Partner of the Year breakfast. Registration is needed, so please go to givebutter.com/BPOY2022 to sign up. For students, faculty, and staff, it's free. I do believe there's a promo code, though.
There is a promo code. Thank you. I was just going to add that. If you are a student, when you go to register, put in a promo code of student. If you are faculty or staff, put in a promo code of staff, and you will not be charged.
Fantastic. So a free opportunity for breakfast, to get to meet and network with some folks that are very influential in the community, and to get to hear from a fantastic speaker, Mr. Mike Wilson. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Well, Steve, I'm positive that we'll have you back on again in the fall to talk about the CPEC job fair. But I wanted to kind of just preview some changes that are coming up. Typically, CPEC happens in February. Unfortunately, back in 2021, it was more of a virtual situation. And earlier this year, we were back. Maybe not nearly as many people as we had been used to. Maybe people were still, somewhat concerned about being indoors, especially during that time. There was, high transmission rates in the area.
Yeah.
You're trying a different pathway this year. Tell us a little bit more about what people can expect from CPEC coming up later this year.
Yeah, we're trying something very different. Even prior to COVID, we were starting to see attendance at, quote, traditional job fairs decline somewhat. And then obviously with COVID, as you said, there were concerns and we had to go virtual, and then we were back in person, but attendance was lower. So we're going to try something different, a little bit out of the box. We are going to try tailgate and relate. So as opposed to dressing up, in your business professional clothing, you're going to be able to come as you are. It's going to be November 2nd. It's going to be at Adams Ritchie Park in Enola, not far at all from Central Penn College, just 5 to 10 minutes down the road. Employers are going to come and they're going to set up in the field. We're going to tailgate. And some of them are talking about bringing their cornhole boards, maybe other games, just an opportunity to mix and mingle with those employers in a little more relaxed, informal setting. And again, as we were talking before, job fairs can be somewhat intimidating. So this is an opportunity to kind of meet on a different type of level. We're going to have 4 food trucks there. Students from the CPEC schools, which Central Penn is one, will receive a passport. And if they get that passport stamped by employers, they will get $13 to spend at food trucks. So they can basically have lunch for free. So I think it's going to be a different type of thing. It's going to be a fun type of event, but also a great way to find out about job and internship opportunities and make connections with those employers.
Have you ever heard of something like this happening? I mean, this is obviously your career. I mean,
Yeah.
I've personally never heard of something quite like this. But I'm curious if, and one final thing, I want to talk about it, our experience at Penn Ace.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of even any of those folks and any other correspondents doing something like this?
There is at least one of the CPEC schools that does a tailgating for jobs event. So we kind of, we talked to them a little bit about it, and they've had a lot of success with it. Now that it's just for their students on their campus, obviously, but there are some types of events like this that other schools have done at their schools. This is the first one that I'm aware of for a consortium event like this, with 15 schools partnering together and putting on some kind of an event like this.
That's awesome. Now, do you think that, and obviously it all depends on the success of this one, but do you think that CPEC might sort of go back to how it used to be, or do you think that this is potentially sort of the wave of the future of job fairs?
Well, it does depend on the success of this one. I would still like to see us do some type of a more traditional type of job fair. And certainly, as hopefully we can one day put COVID completely behind us and all these other things that are happening. Job fairs, maybe it's going to ebb and flow. I don't know. Maybe the job fairs are going away. I hope not. I'm more of a traditionalist. I like the job fair type of setting and the opportunity to kind of network with a bunch of employers, in a more professional type of environment. If not, then maybe Central Penn goes back to doing some type of job fair here on campus in the future.
Which certainly could happen. I mean,
Sure.
if you're going to do this in the fall, maybe like a spring job and internship fair on campus here might be very helpful.
Yeah.
I guess I would just put this out there. Maybe I'm a little off base here, even though it is a bit more informal. I do still think that you should try to at least dress like business casual, right? Like, you don't want people just showing up in like ripped shorts and a t-shirt. You're still giving people a first impression here. So I think when I talk to my classes about what I would be expecting from them, I would ask them, maybe a step down from a job fair in terms of not dressing in business professional attire.
Right.
But I still think business casual, jeans, maybe a nice shirt.
Yep.
I think that would probably be where you want to land because, again, like I mentioned, you still are making that first impression with an employer.
Absolutely.
And even if it is in a more informal setting, I still think that you still have to represent yourself properly.
Absolutely. And, you want to be clean. You want to have your hair decent, et cetera. And it is November 2nd. So we don't know what the weather is going to be
Fingers
like on
crossed the weather is nice.
November 3rd is a weather day. I mean, if we have to back it up a day, but it could be rather cool. So, you might be nice sweatshirt or something like that. Nice hoodie, I think would be okay, would be appropriate. Might need a jacket. Who knows?
Although I will tell you, last year, and this is one of the things that I'll remember the rest of my life, I played golf on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It was really nice that day. But I think and hope, especially during the day, early fall, it gets cooler in the evenings. But I think from that 10 to 2 time frame that you're looking at, I think that, we get the sun out. I think it'll be, hopefully, fingers crossed that it's comfortable.
I hope so too.
Well, the last thing that I wanted to talk about, since you have been on last time, we had an opportunity to present at the Pennies Conference that took place in the Poconos. Gosh, was that May?
It was in May.
Gosh, time goes so fast. But I understand, Steve, you've been involved with Pennies for such a long period of time. You go to the conference every single year. This was my first time that I got to go, and I had such a wonderful experience. And what we presented on was something that the people at the conference just absolutely loved. And I got so many questions and so many, really, really nice comments. We got great feedback from the attendees. But basically what we did was we talked about the ways in which you and faculty members, some mainly me, because that's what we were talking about, is how we first got the ball rolling and how much not only I integrate career services in my classes, but certainly how other Central Penn faculty do as well. And that was just such a wonderful experience that you and I got to work on something, that we got to go to this conference. We had a fun time. And the fact that we really were able to share our knowledge with folks, and we gave a takeaway. And I certainly hope that the people who were there maybe tried to implement one or more of the tips that we gave. Obviously, we're a smaller school than some of the other schools that are involved with Pennies, and maybe to scale some of the things that we do wouldn't quite be as possible. But we also tried to consider that in what we were talking about. We tried to consider the sizes of the schools that we were speaking to.
Sure. Yeah, I love that group. And for those who aren't familiar with PennAce, Pennsylvania Association of Colleges and Employers, so it's made up of a lot of career services folks and also some employer representatives from across the country. We have you as a member of our PennAce organizational membership, as a faculty member. And as you said, I mean, my peers in career services were just kind of blown away by the fact that, wait, this faculty person is coming with you and he's going to be here for both days of the conference and he's going to present. And I think they did take away some really great ideas from our discussion about how we have collaborated. We talked about the importance of networking for students, right, with their career, getting their career started and advancing in their career. It's also important for us.
Absolutely.
Right? For anybody who's already established in their career to be able to network with their peers, to learn from each other. Some of the valuable time just sitting around at dinner, in the evening and talking with colleagues about, what they're doing, what their challenges are, new things that they're implementing, et cetera. I think that time is valuable as well. So I'm a big fan of professional development. It's extremely important to keep up to date with what's going on. And it's great when you can present and you can share what you've been doing with colleagues from around the state.
And I would be remiss to say that you actually presented twice. You presented once with me, and you also presented once with Dan Garissi, who will actually be on our next podcast. podcast.
Yeah.
But you also talked about the adulting fair that you did, and I'm going to talk to him about that because he's actually coming on to promote the adulting fair. But I got to tell you, it was such a wonderful experience. Actually, the first time that I have presented at a live conference outside of the Central Penn campus. Now, I have presented at the Popular Culture Association National Conference, but unfortunately, the last 2 years, we were virtual.
Yeah.
So it was the first time that I actually got to go somewhere, present in front of an audience of people in front of me. So it'll be one that I remember forever. But Steve, I got to tell you, this is something that I really hope, because so many of the things that we're talking about are things I talk about in my own classes. And even though I'm not in career services, it's still important for me to keep up with what is going on in that field because it's so crucial to the way and to my pedagogy and to my teaching philosophy in how I want to integrate career services into our education here. So it's important to me to keep knowledgeable there, and I certainly hope maybe we can think of something to present at next year, and I would love, love, love to go back.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in State College at Toft Trees next year, so maybe we can present and maybe even sneak in around a golf after the conference.
We can do that. Let's. I think maybe after CPEC is over, let's start trying to spitball some ideas. But
Sure.
Steve, I got to tell you, it's always my pleasure to have you on the show, and I thank you so much for taking the time out to join the Nightly News podcast.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to Business Partner of the Year. It's one of my favorite events of the year. I love learning from each other during the town hall meeting. And as you said, we're going to have a really great, vibrant keynote speaker. We've got some great sponsors for the event. I would be remiss if I didn't say that this is being presented by Central Penn College and Langen Financial Group. So they are our exclusive event sponsor for the second year in a row. So they always obviously found enough value in the event last year to say, yes, we want to be your exclusive event sponsor and partner with you again to present this.
Awesome. Well, just a couple of dates. Again, that Business Partner of the Year breakfast is going to be taking place on August 31st from 8:30 to 10:30. Go to givebutter.com/BPOY2022 and use student or staff, depending on what you are in terms of the promo code, for free entry. Of course, keep on your calendar the CPEC Job Fair, November 2nd from 10 to 2, rain date of November 3rd at Adams Rickey Park. The Tailgate and Relate CPEC Job Fair here for this year, even though it already happened in 2022. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you would actually, what you would call it, because CPEC 2022 already happened. So we'll work on that. But please save the date for that. And again, thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time out today. And thanks for dragging me along to the Pennies Conference.
Oh, thank you. It was a joy.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For the Dean of Career Services and Advancement, Steve Hassinger, this is Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
Hi, this is Brian Christiana. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast, a part of the Nightly News Media Club here at Central Penn College.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so fortunate to have one of my favorite guests on. We are joined here today by the Director of Student Housing and Residence Life, Lindsay Garber. Lindsay, how's it going?
It is going great, Paul. Thank you for having us.
And I would also want to point out, I think since the last time that you were on, you're also a new mother.
Yes, yeah. I had my son back in October, so I now have 2 little ones running around at home.
And more power to you. I'm very lucky because my 2 children, one of my children just moved out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she is a junior at Shippensburg, and she just got her own apartment, and it's almost as nice as my house. So I thought it was really interesting. So it was off to help her move, and it was great on one hand, but of course very sad on the other.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet moment.
So we are down one kid at the house. We still have my son, and many faithful podcast listeners know my son is on the autism spectrum. He's 22 years old, so he'll probably be living with us for a while. But and he's my best friend, so I don't want him going anywhere for a while.
There's nothing wrong with that. Best friends are great.
We're also being joined by the new Residence Life Coordinator, Bhujel. Ball, how's it going today?
It's going great.
And one of the main reasons that we wanted to have you both on today is because, you're relatively new to the college. I'd say 6 months or so you've been here.
Since April, so fairly new.
I want to kind of get your perception and perspective of what it's like working here at Central Penn College, maybe a little bit more about your background, some things you're working on. We're also going to talk about a really exciting substance abuse and mental health services administration grant that's going to provide some alcohol and drug education. We're also going to talk about some potential for RAs here on campus. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the CPC Pantry. So let's get started. Well, why don't we start with the pantry first, and then we can maybe get into some of the more heavy stuff down the road. Okay. This is one thing, and I remember last time that you came on, this is something that you were really behind. I know that you're a very humble person, and you don't want to take a lot of credit. So how has that been going, and how can students put in an order for the food pantry should they be interested or in need?
Thank you, Paul. Yes, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. We worked with SGA a few years ago to get it up and running, and it really has taken off. Leanne, I have to give a lot of credit to, our student services assistant. She is the wonderful woman that runs the mailroom, and she also
and always has a smile on her face when you
constantly.
See her.
Yes, she always has a smile.
I wish I could do that.
Maybe she'll give lessons. But yeah, so she is instrumental in helping us successfully run the college pantry here at Central Penn. She collects the orders. She will fill the orders. She helps students arrange pickups. If something needs to go to the Lancaster Center, she arranges a staff member to drop it off. So she really is instrumental in helping and making sure, like, she keeps lists, like if something's running low and we have a food drive coming up, she'll make sure to highlight those items, or we'll use some of our donations to go out and fill those items. So she's very instrumental in the whole process.
I love the fact that this happened, and of course you are starting to see this more and more at different institutions all across the state and the United States as a whole, and it does speak to a big issue here. And of course our residential students here do have meal plans, and there is food available to them on campus, but that meal plan alone does not always fulfill all the needs of our students.
Correct. Yeah.
And especially with, although I will say that the Night and Day Cafe has done a good job in expanding hours and services over time. It's still, only open to relatively early in the evening. So, I'm hoping that students are taking advantage of the CPC Pantry in order to, have a little bit more of an option at their place.
Yeah, Paul, that's a good point. The Night and Day Cafe is open until 6:30 during the week, and they also just did a made-to-order change for dinner. So if students are going down there, they can get made-to-order items until 5 o'clock now. So that's a new addition. Yeah, they're very happy about that. Something else outside of meal plans that takes care of the food piece, but also the college pantry. Like, we have business attire if you're going on interviews and you need business attire to make sure that you're ready for that event. We also have cleaning supplies, which I'm sure Paul can speak to this as well, but like, cleaning supplies is very expensive.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
And a lot of the times when we do inspections and things and we hear students say, well, I don't have cleaning supplies to take care of that. Well, here, let us hook you up with the college pantry. You can get those items that you need and be able to keep your unit in a better condition. So it's really a win-win. We also have personal care items. We have student school supplies. So there's a lot of different areas that are outside of the meal plan and outside of the food options that we do provide through the college pantry. So that is a very big help as well. If students want to request, all they have to do is complete the form. They're in Student Central. There's a link. There's a link on our SharePoint website through the Blackboard. There's also a link that we can send out. You can stop by if you have questions and talk with Leanne or any housing staff member. We can assist you with that. So it's all confidential. We keep it within our department. It's not something we share. And I know students that have used the process have really appreciated it.
And one other thing that I think is super important here, when I've talked to students about this, I think that there could be a misconception from our evening and online students that it's only for our residential students, but that's absolutely not the case.
It is not the case. It's for any student at Central Penn. The only limitation we may have is if you're online and you live in Texas. We may not be able to help you. But sometimes we're able to find food pantries in your area that we can help connect you with. So just because it's not something we can physically take to you, but that doesn't mean that we can't do some research and see how we can connect you with your local food pantry as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I want to come over to you, Ball, and I want to talk about some of your, just a little bit more about your background, maybe kind of introduce you maybe to some people who, as only being here since April, maybe they're still some folks here who don't know you. Can you tell us a bit more about some of your background and how you came to Central Penn?
Yeah, I was actually up in Marist College. I was the resident director there for like 3 years. And
Isn't that where Dr. Fedrizzi went to
yes.
Marist College?
Yep.
So you already have something
Yep.
very in common with
Yeah.
Dr. Linda Fedrizzi Williams.
Actually, I was listening to the Bridge podcast, I think, and there was an episode she actually talked about that. And I think she was being interviewed at that podcast. And I just thought, like, whoa, like
I think that was the one I was on.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I do produce the show, but typically I'm silent.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of behind the scenes. But that one was really cool because I actually got to interview her for one of the first times.
Yeah, but yeah, I was at Marist for like 3 years, and like I said, I worked in housing as well, and the population difference here is crazy. I mean, I had over like 200. My building capacity, just my building alone, had like 337.
Wow.
And staff of 6. So coming from there to here, I can say that I'm at ease most of the time. And I can also say that I have seen anything and everything in terms of housing and incident and all that. So my transition here has been like super smooth, and I think staff here like Lindsay and David and Leon and even the return RAs. I mean they've been amazing, and senior RAs. So they've been amazing. So yeah.
Let me ask you: are you from this area?
No, actually, I'm actually my family. They're in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And then I worked in New York, and so from New York I'm here, but my address is still in Massachusetts.
I was going to say, what brings you to Pennsylvania?
Oh, it's actually it's actually a long story, but basically,
Hey, that's what podcasts are for.
Basically, I've been in a relationship for like 7 years with my girlfriend. She was actually in Portland, and I was in Massachusetts. We got together.
Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon?
Oregon.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was a long distance relationship, and once you go over 6, you got to make decisions. So this was one of those decisions I had to make. But I'm really glad I made the decision because I think I'm enjoying this work more, and I would say that I have more space to work on. And also Lindsay does give me space to kind of work on my ideas and be creative and all that. So. For that, I'm thankful. But yeah, that's pretty much. And then also, I love the college size as well, like the population and also the department. And I saw myself as as someone who can, use the space that is provided, a platform, and then honestly build on it. So
I'm so glad you said that. I think that this is something that I talk with people about all the time about working at Central Penn.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm like 2 terms away from being here for 10 years,
Wow.
Lindsay. 10 years since I started in
Can't believe
2013.
that. Flies by.
And I did start full time in 2016, but I started here in 2013. And when I talk to people about my experience here and why I like working here, it all has to do with the opportunities that I have. So,
Yep.
to your point, because I work here, I've had the opportunity to do so many more things than I would have had if I would be working at another institution.
Yep.
Mainly because just even being like the program coordinator and setting the scheduling and doing the staffing and advising all my students, it gives me, because we're a smaller institution, it gives me more opportunity to branch out and get more experiences
Yes.
that I would have had the opportunity for. So I think I'm really glad that you brought that up. Now, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, and I can ask both of you these questions, is about RAs. One of the things that you'd candidly discussed on the last time that you were on the show was that ever since that we have moved to a free residential housing model, it's been a little bit more of a challenge for you to get RAs to step into that role. For many students, it's probably very difficult to sort of be in charge of your fellow classmates, people that are your peers, people who you probably know pretty well. So how has that, since our last conversation, how has that gone? Are we seeing some positive things? And maybe what are you seeing from your new crop of RAs that I think you just introduced over break?
Yes, they just started the beginning of this summer term. We did the hiring process in spring. It was Ball's first hiring process with Central Penn.
Yep.
I'll let him speak to some of those more specifics, but we've had to get creative in our recruitment. It is, and I think the important thing to point out is it can be a challenge, but it's something that can be very rewarding, and you can get a lot of skill set from it when learning to work with other people and being able to take that. And a lot of students I hear from career services all the time forget to put that they're a student RA on their resume. Like,
That's huge.
it is a job.
It's a leadership position.
Yes, and we're compensating you for that position and all the skills that go with it. And it speaks volumes. Like when we interviewed Ball for his position, he had the fact that he was a student RA, a head RA, and showed how he worked his way up through. And that is impressive to us because it shows the foundation and the base and what skill set he has coming into that interview.
Yeah, and I would say that I have mentored many RAs, throughout my career in student affairs and residence life especially. And I can tell you that, RA job is one of those very, how do I put this? Any job you go for, they're going to talk about time management. They're going to talk about stress management. And they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about, time that you're in a stressful situation and how did you get out of it. And RA job, like that's literally what you do.
Nothing but stress.
That's, but that's what, that's part of your job. And, the fact that you're able to talk, about it and also really prove your point that, hey, I'm capable of this job because I've already gone through stressful, time. And, RA always, they always talk about how easy the interview went because they were able to answer all those questions, and this is one of those this is one of those jobs that honestly prepares you from outside, any career out there.
Lindsay, I'm going to tell you this. I think what you should do is isolate this one 30-second thing that I'm going to say, and you play this for every single student who's thinking about being an RA.
Okay.
I've also been involved with hiring different positions. I've been on several hiring committees here at the college. One of the biggest issues that I see, not only just in those hiring examples, but also for my students who are trying to move on from college into their first career positions, every single place, entry level, is looking for leadership skills.
Yes.
The problem is not always very easy to show and illustrate leadership skills on a resume. Of course, leadership in clubs and things like that, student organizations, yes, that's great. But otherwise, an internship, does that really show leadership skills? Probably not, but an RA does. And being an RA is one of the things that students can do to illustrate leadership skills on a resume. And I'm telling you right now, as much as I work with our local employers here, that across the board is by far the number one thing that people are looking for is leadership skills, and being an RA is one way to demonstrate that.
I would 100% agree, especially like the leadership aspect of it's great to be in student organizations and clubs, but being a leader as an RA is a completely different ballgame.
100%.
And those issues and things that arise that you need to overcome and work through is a whole different set of skills that you bring to the table.
100%. I want to move on to something that is really unique and something that you're going to be, both of you are going to be working on in the fall term. And recently Central Penn College received a grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration to do some alcohol and drug education here on campus. So can you tell me a little bit more about how that all came to be and how that's going to unfold in the fall term?
Yes. So back in, I'm going to say 2019, 2020, we received a grant. It was the Counseling Services, the Director of Counseling, Tom Palmieri, applied for it. We received it, and he was partnering with us to be able to do some programming. And then, as we all know, COVID hit, and everything had to be paused. So we still had the funds to be able to use it. We just haven't had the opportunity. And now with Ball being in the Residence Life Coordinator position, we have a really strong group of RAs that want to take this on. We are going to be able to utilize that and put on a program for drug and alcohol awareness and education in the fall term. So I'm going to let Ball tell the more details about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the new initiatives that we're kind of pushing with RAs is that educational aspect of residential life, and I think there is misconception. People usually see RA as authority figures, and we're trying to change that. And one way we're trying to do is by having RA do programs and by having RA check on their residents in a different setting. Because often what happens is if RA is on call or duty, they have to respond to incident, and that incident can kind of have a negative impact on resident in terms of housing image and all that, and staff. And so to change that, we kind of we have asked RA, we have 6 RAs as of right now, and we have basically split 3-3, and they will be doing a program on their own. So For this term, we actually have 2 groups that are be doing program on stress management. That is going to be next week, and then we have one in September. It's going to be pain and acquaint. So,
Okay.
If you're listening, please attend. And the other ones that, for next term, we have another team going, which is the team of 3 RAs. They'll be putting together this program, and we want to do something big, something meaningful, something very impactful. And they're also talking about having a speaker come to campus and talk. And Ari Bryan, I mean, he's very involved on campus, and he's very competent in terms of putting things like this together. So he'll be leading. He's one of the RAs who'll be leading this. So
Mr. Strawhacker has done all kinds of very
Yes.
interesting things. He got to go to the APCA conference in New York City, or no, in Hershey, and then they went to another conference in New York City. So
It's the same. It's a
the
different
national
avenue, but yeah, the
Right,
national one
okay.
is in New York City.
So, but yeah, Brian's been super involved here on campus. I've had Brian in class numerous times, and it's wonderful that he is one of the RAs. So let me ask you this. Let's say somebody here on campus is looking to maybe have a larger role, and they're considering some different things, how they're going to spend their time, and being an RA is potentially one of the things that they're considering. Sell me on being an RA, other than, the wonderful things that I've already said.
I think I can take lead on that. So here's the thing. I mean, culture change, right? Like RA, our Night Society, that's the program that RA program. Night Society, I mean, I can't speak what happened here when I was not, when I wasn't here, but I can tell what's going to happen moving forward. And I can tell you that we have actually used resources that are around us. Like, for example, we have senior RA or head RA. They are basically the one that's kind of, looking after RAs and whatnot. So we recently actually implemented mentorship. That's part of the responsibility, but we're kind of going above and beyond to make sure that they're actually providing support with new RAs, to new RAs and whatnot. So when people think about RA, I think often people think about responsibility. They only focus on responsibility and what they need to do. But I would say that they don't, people often miss out the support system that we have. Not only RA meet with me one-on-one to make sure that they're doing okay academically and making sure that they're doing good in terms of their personal life and mental health and all that, but also they meet with me. Meet with me because that's one way I can mentor them. So there is actually a layer of leadership and layer of mentorship that they're getting, and that's one thing I would say is different. That's going to be different moving forward because we're going to put more focus to that. Then another thing that we're trying to do is we don't want RA to be the police of residential life, or our department. We want them to be the community builder. So we're putting more focus on that as well. We actually had a staff morning recently, and one of the RA actually said that one of her residents came to her and said, "Hey, thank you for checking on me. This is new to me. Usually RA used to just send me a text message about window being open, but now actually they're coming to check on me to see how I'm doing." So we actually, and it was part of the new initiative of like head counts. It's basically like RAs checking in with their residents to see who's around and how they're doing, and if they have like maintenance, issue or any issue in the house. So that initiative, I would say, is honestly, I think we're seeing positive result. And the RA actually said she felt really good that somebody came up to her and told her that they appreciate her, approaching. So things like this, these are the changes that we're looking for, and these are the changes that we're working. And in terms of, there are benefit in terms of being an RA, not only professionally, but also financially as well. And I think, with the free housing, it's, it can be difficult. It can make our job a little difficult, but we're working around that. But I would say if you're chasing the money, it's probably not the job for you. But if you're chasing for skill, leadership skill, and even if you don't have leadership skills, and you still want to gain that, or you want to be involved with the group that is actually, that's one of our pillars, is to make sure that leadership is part of what you get out of the program. Then this is the program. Night Society is the program that you should go for. And again, we have wonderful people. We have people with, all kind of expertise. Like say we just talked about Brian. We have Haley, who's also our another head RA or senior RA. And they bring a lot to the table as well. So, I would say that, yes, money-wise, of course, we'd love to give out more, but we don't have it. So, but in terms of leadership skills and time management and stress management and mentorship, we're going to put a lot of focus on that. So.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to thank you for taking the time to come down here today. We talked about a lot of big things, and of course, not only just through the summer, but I'm sure you're really looking forward to the fall when we get our largest influx of new students. But just the things that we talk about here today, you're sort of one of the silent leaders here on campus that really just makes things go. Because if it wasn't for your office, it would be probably a lot different here on campus. So I just want to say thank you, and how much I appreciate everything that both of you do, even behind the scenes.
Thank you, Paul.
Just a quick recap. If you are interested in anything from the CPC Pantry, there are links in Student Central. You can also go to the Residence Life SharePoint site through Blackboard that can also do that. And of course, 100% confidential and for residential, evening, and online students. Of course, we also talked a bit more about the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration grant, so look out for some of the programming that's going to be coming along with that. And if anyone is interested in potentially becoming an RA down the line, I'm sure they can just email Lindsay Garber at centralpenn.edu, and she will take it from there.
Yes.
Well, I just want to, again, thank you so much for being here today, and I would love to have you back in the very near future to talk more, and who knows, maybe by then you'll have a third child by the time we have you on again.
I think we're done.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Paul. It's always a joy.
And Paul, thank you for being here, and it was wonderful we've met, but this is the first time we've really had a chance to converse, so thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For the Director of Student Housing and Residential Life, Lindsay Garber, and for the Residence Life Coordinator, Bhujel, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.